Greetings to ye. I am Korbrecht Cinderflume of the Grand Order, and I am here to report successful action against the cult of the dragon. We were in Phandaline, getting ready to pursue the cult, when we met up with a bard named Leosin. He is known to work with the Harpers, and also friends of the Grand Order. So, he suggested that we go and pursue the dragons by going and backtracking along their route out to the pass that they had taken to ferry forth their forces that had assaulted Phandaline. It seemed a fair enough plan, so we went out in that direction. Talked a bit, but eventually we got to the pass. In the pass, we had found out that the dragon cult had already left the other side of the pass, and we didn't know if they had a rear guard. So we set forward until we found a horseshoe canyon in the middle of the pass. There were folks there, so we investigated to find out if they were the rear guard of the dragon cult. They had watchtowers, but they were not manned, and it turns out that the people that were in the cavern were not more than hunters. These folk were not aligned with the dragon cult. They had worked for the dragon cult when they were masquerading their identities, and in such a way, they were fed by these hunters and paid them appropriately for their labor, and had moved on after the operations within the at Phandaline, when we drove them off. However, they said that some members of the dragon cult were still present. They had pulled back into a cave at the back end of the horseshoe cavern, and that they had gone in and no come out. Well, we couldn't pass up an opportunity like that, could we? We went back and investigated the cavern. It was not just a standard cave, it had been worked upon. And as we went in, we came to a larger room with a set of stairs going down. But rather than just traipsing over and falling into a trap, we found that there were some archers that had positioned themselves behind some stalactites that reached all the way to the ground there. So there was a brief fight, but we easily bested them. Our forces are more than strong enough to take on a wee bit of manky humans with bows. So we investigated the archers to find out they were common dragon cultists. And as the group was getting ready to descend down the stairs in pursuit of the leadership of the dragon cult, that, well, we had reason to believe one of them at least was the half-dragon named Landragotha, who had beaten down one of our members, a Goliath, but had spared him. Interestingly enough, seeming to have honor, but still a member of the dragon cult. So, as they prepared to go down, something itched at the back of me mind. Those archers picked a really bad position for an ambush if there was no chance of falling back if they were sprung upon. So I looked around the alcove and I saw that part of it was actually a cunning ruse. It was actually a set of fairly convincing under common observation, unless you were of course a dwarf, that part of it was just actually false rock, and we could go through into another passage. Honestly, it makes more sense to go to a place they're concealing than the great staircase that's positioned in front of you. That's where all the traps are and all the bows would be pointing. Instead, we went through the cavern and into the secret passage, passed through, and we found an intersection. Neat enough, there was a lass who was burning a quantity of documents in a haste as if all of hell's forces were gathered against her. I guess that would be us. So our sneaky folk decided they would creep up upon her, and since she was clearly one of the dragon higher-ups, they moved to attack. But stealth is not our forte, it would seem. One of our stealthiest of the lot tripped over a carpet and gave the game away. Well, she jumped up straight up as if she was stung by a bee, and prepared to defend herself. She was but one cleric, as it turned out, preparing to cast down a bunch of spells upon us, even as our folk moved up to engage her. And the first thing I did, as she was so intent on burning all of the documents, was to snuff out the fire with a bit of pyrotechnics. Or rather, my simple prestidigitation cantrip, but it did the trick. And she moved up to meet our charge. She prepared to cast a spell. Well, we couldn't be having that now, would we? Seemed to be a nasty enough spell, but a simple counterspell and it was ended. She did not like that very much. The rest of the others pounced in, but she was prepared to try to slip away. She called for help, and she backed away. Well, we couldn't be having that now, could we? So I used my Misty Step and appeared behind her to stop her escape. And I gave her a little bit of a greetings with the tip of my axe. Well, the group continued to press and press and press, until I heard sounds that her reinforcements were coming from the passage behind me, apparently moving deeper into the compound. So, when I saw the lads that were coming, they appeared to be large, rangy, berserk barbarian types, I put up a bonfire at my back to hold them and make sure that any deciding to attack me would get singed for their efforts. One did get through, but my shield blocked that attack and, reinforced my ward that protects me. Upon this time, the rest of the group finally put down the cleric, and she dropped. The dragon cultists who were moving to support her pushed me out of the tunnel. I could not stand against 5 strong warriors all by myself, and I was pushed out and they moved in to engage the rest of my group. However, the last one was the half-dragon Langdragosa, tough fighter, and he moved forward hastily to attempt to administer a potion to the fallen cleric. Well, we couldn't be having that now, could we? We'd already gone to all the effort to put her down once, and I even let her cast a curing spell upon herself once, and, well, the lads took care of that. I seem to remember Lydia pressing her most cruelly too. But all told, with all the forces against her, she was going to fail. And now, when Landragosa was there attempting to administer a healing potion, I grabbed one of my flasks of alchemist fire and launched it right into his face with my catapult spell. He did not like that much, being on fire and taking the damage directly to his face. Hilariously enough, the one who spelled her doom was the cleric Caithion. Threw down a bolt of flame from above and cooked cooked his mistress. Since she was down, there was no saving her. So he kinda went a little bit off. Decided he was going to attack me no matter what. I can't say I blame him, he knew at least quality of opponents. That being said, he was a half-dragon, the blue variety, and he breathed a blast of lightning that fair cooked me. It burned off the rest of me arcane ward, certainly, which had been clipped by one of their berserkers before. So, I'm not going to lie, it stung a bit. So I just misty stepped back behind the others and ended up next to Caithion, who was nice enough to do me a turn, and he healed me up real nice. Landragosa didn't seem to care very much. He charged right through our forces, took a bunch of damage doing it. A bunch of our fine folk thrusting, stabbing, and chopping him down. I seem to remember that Glint was hurling his hammers for all to see, and Lydia was taking up position trying to keep everybody safe in the front. Always out on the outskirts, we had that elven rogue bouncing about. I'll remember his name soon. But yes, all told, everybody was doing their jobs and trying to keep the barbarians back, taking shots at Landragotha, and for the most part it was a clinic on how to work together as a team to keep a disorganized foe down. Eventually, Landragotha started to wear out, but he decided to press the attack regardless. So, I called upon my Shadow Blade, stabbed him at the same time that everybody turned, and all together we finished the foe. He fell at our feet. All that remained was to mop up a few of the berserkers, a quick acid splash to one pair, and we chopped them down well enough. They did their damage, I'm not going to deny it. We have some wounds as a result, but, well, Kytheon was up to that, immediately starting to heal us, but since we had broken the back of the 2 lieutenants of the Cult of the Dragon, they're going to take a bit of a kip and a breather. We looked around, found Landragotha's quarters. Fair enough, I suppose. For a fairly powerful warrior, he was living on low means, I suppose. We still have yet to do great things down below. Turns out that bard Leosin had gone down and scooted around, and he found out that there's full of kobolds down there and dragon eggs. Aye. Time for an omelette. Aye, we're not going to eat them. I know dragons, they can think, and there's something about eating that which can think that sets me off all willikers. But we still have to put an end to them before they become full-grown dragons. As it turns out, we knew that the cult can age dragons artificially. What if they could take them from just after hatching to full-grown adults? It's not a thing I like to think about. So if we could put an end to these dragons early and finish off this cult, it'll be that much the better. We did find that there is a shrine to their janky god Tiamat down there. We have to probably put an end to that. But we are forming our plans and preparations to go down. Leosin is going to disguise himself as this female cleric of the cult, and if any others come in, he's going to waylay them and set them off in other directions so that we can chop them up easier. As far as the kobolds go, it brings me no great joy to say that we should probably kill them all. If they have been touched by this dragon cult, they're probably now incorrigible and irredeemable. We don't want to have that spreading throughout the rest of the feral kobold population, now do we? That wouldn't be good. So, to that extent, I'll make another recording when I have more news, but we've had a major victory, and if you're finding this, that means that we got out alive. And that brings me heart good. I got a good testing in of my skills, we fought against some quality opponents, and we're ready for the next step. So, on behalf of the Grand Order, I wish ye Farderach, in the tongue of my people, farewell.